everybody, welcome to day 2 of our study of plants and flowers. Today we're going to be talking about the parts of a flower. We'll talk about parts of a plant later on in the week. It's going to be pretty much in a lot of ways the same, but today we're going to focus only on flowers. And it's just going to be the parts of a flower, the main parts. There are, depending on the flower, there are different parts that get really technical and really detailed, but we're just doing a big, broad look at the parts of a flower. So let's start. Before we get started, we need to remember when we talk about plants and flowers are plants, they need 3 main things to live. So they need water, they need oxygen or air, like fresh air, and they need light. Most of the time that light's going to be from the sun. Of course, there are plants that grow, like house plants and things that grow inside, but they still have to have light. They usually are put near a window, or they have a heat lamp put on them or something so that they still get that light that they desperately need to live. And again, flowers are plants, and all plants really need these things. They need that water, that oxygen, and that light to live. So flowers have 5 main parts. Now, like I said, some of these do get really technical when you break it down into really tiny little parts and you think about it, but we are just doing a broad look at them because it would be very difficult to dig way deep into how these flowers are made up. But those 5 main parts are leaves, roots, the stem, seeds, and petals. So we're just going to go through and talk about those 5 things. And then at the end, I'll give you your directions for your assignment. So the leaves, we know what leaves look like. They catch the sunlight so the plant can make its food, which is called glucose. Now, that is through a process called photosynthesis. You probably have heard that word before, but that's the best way to say it is that it's the way the plant makes its food, makes food for it to live. Air and water can also come in through leaves. So you definitely, if you have a flower or a plant, you want those leaves to be where air, water, all that can get into it. And of course, that light from the sun, you want that to be able to hit those leaves so the leaves can absorb it. Then you have the roots. We know pretty much what roots are. Roots are what keep the plant firmly in the ground or in a flower pot. And the roots soak up water and nutrients from the soil. So it's very important that the roots stay down in the soil because that's where it does pick up a lot of nutrients. It gets water. So if you've ever watered plants, you don't usually put water on top of the plant. You put it around the plant on the ground or in the pot, and that water goes down in the dirt and it gets sucked up through the roots over time. That's how another way that water gets into the plant. And of course, we know that plants need water to live. The stem. Now, the stem connects the roots to the rest of the flower. So all the parts of the flower, the leaves, the roots, the flower itself, they all are connected to this stem. The stem is that middle part that goes straight up and down in this picture. You can have, if you ever pick a flower, that's usually what you would be holding on to. If you see a bouquet of flowers, that's what you're holding on to, the stems. If you want to think big like a tree, the tree trunk is basically like a stem of the tree. It's what holds it all together up and down. The seeds. Now, we can break this down into little tiny parts, but for the sake of time, the sake of confusion, we're going to keep it broad. So seeds are the parts of a plant that help spread it around to grow new plants. So they might be blown by the wind. They might be carried by birds. If you from yesterday, our story about the tiny seed, how the seed went through the water, it was stepped on. It was carried around by the birds. It was blown through the wind. That seed went all over the place because of things in nature like the wind and water and other animals. So that is how flowers, especially things like wildflowers, how they get spread around. Because a lot of times people plant flowers in their yard, but when you think about things like wildflowers, this is how that comes into play. And finally, the petals. Now, the petals are the parts that we think of when we think of a flower. That's the pretty part of the flower. They attract insects and animals to the plant, and they help with the flower's reproduction process. And they are the part that's colorful. The way the petals help with the reproduction process is it does attract those animals and insects that can carry the pollen and carry the seeds elsewhere. So, but the petals themselves are what we think of when we think of a flower. That's what makes them different from a tree, what makes them different from grass and weeds is those petals that stand out and are really pretty. So, like I said, there are these 5 main parts: the roots, the leaves, the stem, the seeds, and the petals. They each have their own things to do, of course, but they also do things on their own. I mean, like I said, they all do things on their own, but they all have a purpose, which is to help the flower grow and to help the flower reproduce so that you have more flowers. So that is a broad look at the 5 main parts of flowers. So what your assignment will be is something that is uploaded after this. So when you get done here, go look at that assignment and complete it. That will be a learning check for the parts of a flower. Now, tomorrow we're going to take a little bit of a look at the parts of a plant, which are in a lot of ways the same. For the most part, they are the same. And we're also going to later on look at the process it takes for plants to grow and flowers to grow and how they're spread around and the life cycle of plants and flowers. So from here, go do your learning check on the parts of a flower. And if you need to come back and watch this, you are welcome to do so. I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your day.